What's up, everybody? This is Shots from the Winchester podcast, brought to you by Greencastle Consulting, your nation's premier strategy execution firm. I'm your host, Al Green. We have RJ Clark with us today, and we're going to have an awesome conversation today. We have the Philly sports guy on our podcast today, and we're really excited about this. He's also going to be at Vet Fest, which is in September 14th, which is awesome also. We're really looking forward to this conversation. We hope you are too. Make sure you guys hit like and subscribe, and let's jump in with Jamie. So Jamie, Philly sports guy, what have you been up to? You've been super busy. I mean, like, this is like the sports mecca time right now, especially in Philadelphia. How are you getting around to all these places?
Driving. Flying any way I can. It's well, first off, thank you guys for having me on the show. I really do appreciate you bringing me on. It's been fun. Yeah, especially this is the time of year where things get a little crazy. Obviously, we are in the throngs of Philly season, and they're about to make the playoffs. And they've been on a little bit of a down swoon, but are starting to come up now. They got a 3-game winning streak as we air this, or talk about this. And then then it's also Eagles season's about to begin. The end of this week, I leave for Brazil to go to watch the Eagles take on the Packers down in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So it's going to be it's interesting, and it's only going to get busier between now and the beginning of November.
Wow, that's amazing. Have you been to Brazil?
I have. Actually, the last time I was in Brazil, I was in the Navy. So they tried to sell our ship. The ship I was on, which was the USS Portland, which was LSD 37, and that they were considering selling our ship to Brazil. After Brazil came on and took a look at it, I think I'm not sure if it was too much money or just not what they were looking for.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we are veteran-owned operated here at Greencastle, so we thank you for your service. For just to put that out there. And the Navy. How long were you in the Navy?
3.5 years.
Okay, cool. Good stuff.
I spent my 17th birthday in boot camp. My 18th birthday in boot camp. And I tell you, celebrating a birthday in boot camp is not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, no.
You're not getting birthday cakes. You know what I mean?
No.
Anything like that. So it wasn't very fun in that regard. And I spent 3 years and was right during Desert Storm. And ultimately, once our ship came back from like Bahrain, and then we also did a Unitas cruise. Once I got back into port, that's right when Clinton got elected, and he was downsizing the military, and they kind of paid for me to leave.
Okay.
That's not the worst way to leave the military.
No, it's never again volunteer yourself for all you Navy guys. It's sometimes that holds true.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So on Brazil, right? Yeah, it's August 27th for the listeners. But by the time this airs, season will be well underway.
Yeah.
Any hot takes, preseason predictions you want to put your name behind for the Birds this year?
I have the Eagles going somewhere 12-5, maybe 13-4, and I have them going to the NFC Championship game versus Detroit. I think we're going to wind up having to go to Detroit for that NFC Championship game, and that's going to be a tough game. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. I'd love to say that the Eagles are going to win that, but they're going to really have to have their full attention on Detroit to do that. I think Detroit's really well coached and got a great team, and if there was, if I was to take out the homer part of me thinking that the Eagles could make it to the Super Bowl, I actually would have Detroit being my choice to go to the Super Bowl.
It's a welcome change from the Niners, so I'm glad to hear that. So.
Well, the Niners are having a little bit of a tough time right now. They're, they got Ayuk crying, they got Williams crying. They're all pro tackle, and without him, if they, he's going to hold out the start of the season. They're going to find out very quickly what it's like when you don't have the best at that position playing.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. So, we were just having a conversation earlier about you and how you're getting in and out of these stadiums. Like when I'm at the stadium, I it takes at least an hour to get out of the stadium, but you're going from one place to Lancaster to.
I was telling Al, I saw you this weekend. You're at preseason Eagles game, 1 o'clock start, and then you're throwing out the first pitch in Lancaster the same night, and I'm like, I don't even know where you found the time to change the face paint.
Well, I didn't stay for the entire Eagles game. That was
okay.
the first thing.
I don't blame you. It was rough.
That was well, and I wasn't really expecting to stay at all. I was going down to the tailgate because the guys that run the tailgate that I'm a part of, we're going to have a lot of filming going on there, some with the Eagles, some just from the tailgate itself. So they wanted to see if I could make it down there to be a part of that. Then I found out that I had some contract obligations that required me to go to the game. So I had to go to the game for at least a quarter. And when you say it's an hour to leave, it's an hour for me to just be able to walk out of the stadium.
Yeah.
Because whether we win or lose, if we win, it's Eagles fans that want to take pictures with me. If we lose, it's the opposing fans that want to take pictures with me. Either way, I can't go 7 steps without having to stop and take pictures with people. And I signed up for that. That's definitely not something that I'm crying about, but it is something that absolutely happens and did happen that day. Like I was trying to get out halfway through the first quarter, and I didn't leave until the second quarter was about 3 minutes in.
Wow. Wow.
Take
so
pictures with everybody.
Yes. Now this is your full-time job.
It is.
Yeah. So how did you manage to come from, how did you manage this? Because this is a very unique position to be in. You're very much an influencer here in Philadelphia. So give us a little clue on how you managed to get to this position.
So I'd have to start at the beginning here, and it's a little bit of a longer story, but before I started doing this full time, I had been painting up for Eagles games for probably about 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's I never really got the recognition. There was somebody else who did it for home games, and I never really did it at home. I always would do it on away games. And in the meantime, I owned a chimney sweep and masonry company. Called USMC, United States Masonry and Chimney, and I was
like that.
Owned that for a little while. I couldn't figure out how to do an acronym with Navy and Masonry and Chimney, so I had to go with Marines. Since we transported them around a lot everywhere, I figured I could maybe borrow those initials. I had it initially USMC, and I got one of those very nicely worded cease and desist letters from the United States government saying that I am not allowed to use the letters USMC in a string, so I had to put the ampersand in between the S and the C.
Oh,
so, but it was a very good letter to get. I'm like, well, at least they were nice about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
And I owned that company for a little while and was just having a hard time finding guys that wanted to work. And I was a good mason and a good chimney guy, but I couldn't grow the business because I was having a hard time with employees. And during that time, I was also helping somebody out start up their production company. And in the meantime, I went down to New Orleans for the Eagles Saints playoff game. And everyone remembers that as Alshon Jeffrey missing the ball.
Right.
And we lost that game, but I was all over the television for that. And the production company said, hey, listen, we'd like for you to do a commercial. And then they got to see me in my persona. And they're like, wow, your energy is amazing. You're like the Philly sports guy. We should see if this team's available.
Yeah.
And it was. And they said, well, you know what? If you want to learn, we'll teach you how to do social media. Because the first time I got recognized, my first couple of viral videos, I had kids coming up to me that night at the Saints game saying, man, you went viral. And I go, what does that mean? Like, I have no idea what that even means.
Yeah.
And so it was, I got thrown to the wolves. They say, this is what you got to do. Go to the draft now. And I'm like, I went to the one in Philly, but I've never been to an NFL draft. I don't even know these college guys. Why would I want to go there?
Yeah.
And so I go there and immediately I own it. I own, like, my energy was just over the top. I was geeking out on all these things, had a great time, and literally I owned the draft.
Wow.
Since I went to that draft, I haven't missed one since. I just keep going back. But initially, when I was talking on how to grow this, it was if you were a Philadelphia sports fan at the end of the 2 years, you are going to know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I did it. That trying to become a professional fan, there was never anybody who's done this before.
Yeah.
Nobody makes money going to sporting events and rooting on their teams unless you have unless you're a reporter.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Now, the one that probably goes to as many games as I do is John Clark, and he's the reporter for NBC 10, sports reporter. So there wasn't any manual on how to do this. And ultimately, I just kept doing it and just kept doing it. And you hear the naysayers and you hear the haters, and I just kept barreling through and barreling through. And now people say, wow, man, I see you everywhere. And it's become more of an iconic thing that they love seeing me. They love taking a picture with me, and they love telling their friends when they see me on television at a game, I know him. It's become the thing. I've become the guy. It's that guy. It's the TikTok guy. It's the guy, and it's so interesting to me that I was able to kind of pull this off and put this together, and it's now brought in the money and the sponsorships, and it's made it easier to do this because initially I was paying for it all out of pocket, and it's now it's become a thing, and now I get to it brings me all the way to here with you guys, where it's, if I wasn't good at what I did or what I do, nobody would still know. I would still be just the guy with the painted face.
Right. Well, you're doing well because you had haters. Haters
first sign.
Yeah, that's like a prerequisite to like success.
Absolutely. The haters are more loyal than the followers. It took me a minute to learn that, and it took me a lot of hard lessons. Because I would respond to the haters with, one thing I'm real big on is you don't get it. You're not going to bully me. I'll bully you right back, and I'm better at it. But the problem is when you're doing it online, they don't ever catch, like, you got to report the first person to talk to you. You can't go back the other way, because the moment you go back the other way, they report you, and now for a week I'm banned. So there goes my money for a week. I don't make a lot of money on social media, but now I don't have the ability to even post on social media because somebody else got under my skin, and I felt like replying. Now I'm smarter. Now I'm just smarter about it.
Yeah, that's a good point to put out there, because like a lot of people are on social media trying to grow themselves out there, and there's a lot of people that just, I don't know, there's just like thumbs down, like, why? So it's
all
good
the time.
Yeah,
all the time. People are haters, and you know what I find? It's jealousy. It's jealousy because I am doing the things, like when you think about it. Wow, you get to go to every sporting event. I see you everywhere. You're doing great with this. You're living the life I want to live.
Yeah.
And it's not, I can't, I'm sorry that I'm living that life, but I worked to get to this point.
Exactly.
It was really tough for me to do this. I spent almost, $250,000 going to these games and buying these trips and going out to different stadiums and spending the $500 because an Eagles ticket, not only in Philly is expensive, but everywhere else they're gouging the price of the tickets because they know that Philly fans travel really well. So it cost a tremendous amount of money to get to this point. And now I'm actually starting to benefit from the fruits of my labor.
Are you in the black yet?
No.
I was wondering, as business people, it's hard to get back into black, like especially once you've already put that work in, like you said, 30 years. You've been out there going back and forth to these things, and it's only been since 2018, 2019.
Correct.
So
that I've done this full time now.
Yeah. So everyone out there, if you recognize this, know that you need to put the work in if you want to get to that level. So no, thank you for that. That's great.
Yeah, I think it's you probably get it all the time, and you're alluding to people saying stuff like, I wish I had your job, but they don't think through the fact that like it is a job. Like like you said, it takes you an hour to leave the stadium, And it's not because I'm sure you're not having fun interacting with fans, but like you have to take those pictures. You have to constantly be managing your brand, both in a digital like footprint now that social media is taking on, but so much of what you do is in person, and having those in-person interactions is how you kind of cultivate and maintain your fan base.
Yeah.
100%. And there's a lot. I mean, the first thing I tell people is when they say they want my job is like, you better love people.
Yeah.
Like you have to love people, because I don't ever turn anybody down from a picture. If you want to take a picture, like short of me just saying, hey, I got a line over here, you can get in line. But I definitely take the few seconds with everybody, because there's a few things that I kind of give myself some, unspoken rules. And it's like, first thing is that the 15 seconds that I spend with somebody, I may not remember, but they typically won't forget.
Right.
And they look at me as famous. And I tell myself, and I tell everybody who wants to listen, when you paint your face for a living, you better get the joke. I can't take myself too seriously, because it's what I do. I paint my face for a living, and I go to sporting events. I am blessed that I was able to make this into something that I'm making money off of. But it's not simple. It was not easy. And because of that, I always take the high road too. I don't drink during any of the games. I don't curse at any of these games. And I'm from Philadelphia.
I was going to say, you're rewriting what it means to be a Philly fan.
Exactly. It's like, I kind of make the joke when people ask me, it's like, I don't curse, I don't sit down, and I don't shut up. That's what you're getting when you get me at a game. And you can hate on me all you want. You could yell and curse at me all you want, and I'm going to still take it, because I got the thick skin. And if you're cursing at me, that means I've already won, because you already know, like I've already beaten you, and you now had to make it personal because you can't keep up with my wit, because I could care less whether my team wins or loses. They don't pay me enough to care about that.
Right.
I could be disappointed, I could be critical, but I don't have to be angry. I don't have to be, taking out on anybody else. This is a game that these guys make millions of dollars that I help pay for.
Right.
I'm not going to get into an argument or a fight with you because, my team lost. What's the point of that?
Right. Anger is a choice,
Right.
So that's a good balance to have, like, especially when you're in a venue like that. You've got so much emotion coming at you, from fans, from great emotions, like angry emotions, people get really tanked up around there. I wanted to jump in real quick, because like as a business person, you're not just doing this by yourself. You've got people helping you out, right? You got like a small team, right?
So not really. I mean,
Okay.
I have sponsorships that my biggest sponsor is Philly Sports Trips. I have a role with them where I am an ambassador to them, and because they bring me on all these trips, and I get to be one of the liaisons that when you're on the trip, and if you have a problem, I can help solve the problem. So and I have a hotel restaurant management degree, so event planning and event, thinking outside the box to fix problems is something that I have the ability to do really well. So in the process of that, it's a very good symbiotic relationship. I want to go to the games, they go to all the games. I am now working for them, but in the meantime, I have 500,000 people that are watching me. And in the process of that, I am saying, hey, if you want to travel with me and go with Philly Sports Trips. And that makes it worthwhile to them to have me on their payroll. So that's how I get help. But when it comes to the makeup, I do it all myself.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's great.
The uniforms and everything, I have to be creative sometimes to be able to get the full look that I want to. But ultimately, the teams now want me there. They realize that I'm more of an asset to them than anything else.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I'm always happy when people make a living doing something that they love, and then especially how you're sharing this with us right now, because I've run businesses. I've done great. I've done bad, with businesses and stuff, and like the biggest thing to take away from all of that is that you just keep going. You keep trying, you keep putting effort in, and you keep making it worth it. And from your perspective, that's exactly what you've done, and that's commendable for sure.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's absolutely a fight. I mean, there
Hmm.
were times during this past 6 years where I have, wanted to quit. I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't understand. I'm putting out good content and I'm not getting
Hmm.
any following and I'm not making any money and I've got kids that like sandwiches. You know what I mean? They got to
Yeah.
eat.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like you gotta be able to
Yeah.
afford to do what you're doing. But the moment you quit, it's done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. It's the hardest thing not to quit sometimes.
Hmm.
And thank God the universe has answered some of the calls I've needed where it was I've been upset and ready to quit. And the next thing I know, I get this message from somebody on Instagram who's never met me before,
Hmm.
but the one of the worst times, and I'm talking about one specific time, maybe about 3 years ago, I was ready to call it. I was like, okay, this isn't working. I can't do this anymore. I
Yeah.
just have to get, I'm going to have to go back to being a stonemason or chimney sweep or whatever. And I
Hmm.
got this message from somebody who I never met, but they were talking to me about how their father was diagnosed with cancer and he had just a month left to live and he was on hospice and at one point, they saw me. They were watching a game and they saw me on the screen and they said, "Hey," the father goes, "He looks like he's a fun guy." And he goes, "Oh, well, I happen to follow him on Instagram." And they started watching my videos and they would laugh every day because I'm
Hmm.
always somewhere at one game or another. And
Yeah.
so they were laughing. And the first month went by, the second month went by. Uh, Ultimately, 4 months goes by and he finally passes. And
Hmm.
he kind of attributed the fact that they were watching my videos on a daily basis on
Hmm.
how he got to spend 3 extra months with his father, and that
Wow.
it was so profound that he needed to tell me that
Wow.
because he understands that this may be tough to do and that
Yeah.
my reach is much further than I would even know. And
Wow.
it hit me so hard when I read that and I sat back, I took an inventory and I says, "Okay, I'm not ready to quit yet." Now this gave me the strength to keep going now for at least another year. And then
Wow.
things started to look up and things started to change and just
Hmm.
sometimes you just need to get over that hump that you
Yeah.
don't really know what's there and it starts
Yeah.
to solve, it's like things start to come together.
Wow. That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. Damn, that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I did to have a positive experience, whether it's, watching a game with their father or, you know,
Yeah.
any
There's
family, friends, anything like that. It's just really a
There is
great way to
so
put it together.
much negativity out there right now.
I
So
agree.
much. Yeah.
Everything we look at on television, I mean, starting from the news, it's always bad news. We're looking at politics, how they're fighting with each other all the time, and it's everything's very divided. And it's like just a breath of fresh air for somebody to be positive all the time. It's
Yeah.
like I said this the other day is that the high road has the least amount of traffic because nobody wants to traverse that road.
All
And
right.
when you live on that road, I mean, obviously, I'm not an angel. You know what I mean? There are things that I do wrong. But I mean, when you take the high road, it's easy to move because there's nobody else there with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's good advice too. I love hearing that. Um, so let me ask you this. When did you first find a love for sports that drove you into this avenue of your life right now? Like, what was that first game?
Oh, wow. So I don't know that there was a first game in general.
Yeah.
Um, So, I mean, my mother and my grandmother and my aunt all worked at the Spectrum. So
Oh,
there
the
were a
Spectrum. I
number,
remember when it was called that.
yeah, so there were a number of times where sports has always been a part of my life
Yeah.
through my mother and my grandmother. Like I, my mother and my grandmother lived together with my father and my grandfather and stuff like that, and my aunt all worked at the same place. So I
Huh.
would start watching games because I knew that when the game was over, then my mother would be coming home. So,
Mm.
and most of the time it'd be too late. I'd have to be going to bed or whatever. But that was the kind of thing. As a 2 and a 3-year-old kid, you're watching sporting events because your mother is going to work at the sporting event. So I figured maybe if I watch on TV, I'll see my mom. Well,
Yeah.
I was never going to see my mother. She worked in the club that,
Yeah.
so she was never on the ice or on a
Yeah.
basketball court. But it was just, you don't know any better when you're that young.
Right.
And so I started to get my fandom through the Flyers, just watching Flyers games. And back in, and when I'm 2 and 3 and 4 years old, they're winning Stanley Cups,
Yep.
Yeah.
and they have this big rivalry with the Russians. And that
Mm.
that lived on in infamy for years,
Yeah, that was
that
big.
all the way till 1980.
Hmm.
So, and then in 1980, I'm 8 years old, and
Hmm.
all four teams are championship caliber teams. Only one won the championship, but all four Philly teams went to the championship that year.
Yeah.
So it was like everything was always just high end, high end, high end, and high energy.
Hmm.
And it sort of instilled in me like,
Mm.
hey, I love this excitement. I love watching these teams. I love rooting them on. And then at 14 years old, I got myself a job working at the Spectrum. I was
Oh,
bussing
wow. Okay.
tables, and it was a union job. I was making
Hmm.
$7.50 an hour plus tips, which back in
Wow.
1988 was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm making tons of money. I made so much money that between my junior and senior year of high school, instead of buying a car, I went backpacking through Europe because I had already made the decision that after high school I was going to go into the Navy.
Okay.
And so it was like I wanted to live my life. And I went to like 8 different countries. I got to go to East Germany before the wall came down.
Wow.
It was so many unique experiences that I've had that kind of stemmed just from me being a fan in general. And
Wow.
it's helped live this life. So when you ask me that first game, I don't know that there's one specific game that I have that's made
Yeah.
it all worthwhile. It's just, from out of the womb, I was thrown into a life surrounded by sports.
Mm.
And, although I'm not, I'm an okay of an athlete, but not a professional athlete. I just maybe don't have that drive or maybe just the ability to do the things that some of these athletes are able to do.
Yeah.
I've always just been a fan of it and always
Wow.
watching it.
Wow. Wow. That's a good perspective right there. It's like, I always wonder how do people, where does the motivation come from to become the person that they are? And that's amazing to hear that. That was just your world. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny when this started to become a thing.
Hmm.
I when I got recognized for that one football game, my mother was really on her last leg. She was, she had COPD and emphysema from years of smoking. So if
Mm.
you're smoking, quit. You always have time
Yeah.
to. Um,
Yeah.
but anyways, she had that, and I got on TV, and they were making a big deal of it. And
Hmm.
next thing you know, she's like, "You're not too famous to talk to your mom, are you?" And I'm like, "No, mom." And exactly. And she's like, when you're on your deathbed, you start to look back in your life and you start to have some regret. And I was explaining to her that I was considering making this move from closing my business up and starting to do this Philly sports guy thing. She's
Hmm.
like, if it makes you happy, do it. I've
Mm.
lived my life and had so many miserable jobs and stuck with those through the miserableness because like we just needed to. But
Yeah.
I can't say that anymore. Now it's like you should follow your dream. If you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And I just spoke to Gary V, who was one of the guys who was in my ear at the time, telling, just I didn't know him personally, but he was listening to his podcast and hearing him say, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And then my mother said something to me that kind of struck home. She goes, when you were like 10 years old, you asked me, why don't anybody paint up for Phillies games or Flyers games or Sixers games? Why is it only seem that you only see people with face painted for football? I said, really? I asked you that question? She goes, well, I said, well, what did you answer? She goes, I don't know. Go outside and play. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's funny that she brought that up to me, that even at 10 years old, maybe I was destined to be the Philly sports guy, that I'm asking, why don't people paint their face for these other sporting events, to my mother, and she doesn't know how to answer that. And now I'm a guy who paints his face for all the sporting events.
Wow.
Jay, you mentioned your kids earlier. I imagine they came up in similar Philadelphia fandom. Are they part of? No.
No. So they are. Their mother would tells me that I probably ruined sports for them.
Oh no.
Because of. So before I was painting my face, I was always cheering the same way. So imagine you're watching a football game or a hockey game, and you go from 0 to 100 miles an hour because there's a big play, and I would yell like "yeah" or something like that. Well, I would scare the kids. So because I would scare the kids, they aren't really the biggest of sports fans because they didn't understand how to sit with me while I was being a fan, and because they were more scared, they would shy away from that. My son now has a little bit more interest, will sometimes get painted up with me and go to games.
That's awesome.
My daughter has no interest.
No interest at all.
Correct. She's like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. However, they do get some street cred by having me as their father.
Yeah. I was going to say that's. Yeah, you're going through their Instagram page and they're like, the Philly sports guy follows you? Like,
well, actually,
it's my dad.
It's funny because, at 15 and 14 years old, they still are not really into social media as much. Yeah. So their friends are, but I kind of, me and their mother have been kind of tepid on that because I know what it could be like. Yeah. One of the things that kids right now are much tougher even than when we were in school.
Oh, yeah.
And the bullying's real. So I try to take away certain avenues that they could get bullied in without, unnecessarily. Because I had tons of people that have really big keyboard muscles that they would never say to your face or anything like that. And I don't want them to be a part of that until they're of age to really make their own decisions about stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a smart move. Yeah. Thinking about how social media is, it's you got to have tough skin to be on there for sure, and you got to recognize the positions that you're put in, and see the good and the bad. There's obviously some good and bad about your social media stuff, but it's amazing to see how much you've grown on your social media channel. In fact, and like. You've got your podcast. Let's talk about your podcast. Actually, let's see what do you guys talk about on your podcast, so for our audience, and what the name of your podcast is.
So I do a couple of them. The first one that I do on a daily basis is called Coast to Coast. It's a sports show, but we talk a little bit more than sports. It's sometimes we talk sports, sometimes we just talk life. It's like we'll talk about steak, or we'll talk about dating. We talk about whatever really kind of is more of the conversation. During football season, we talk a lot of football.
Yeah.
Baseball, baseball we could talk a little bit, but the dog days of summer are just that.
Yeah.
And then the other podcast that I do is the NFC East show, where I have 3 other super fans. And we all get together and we talk about our teams for an hour. Like we're actually about to get that started back up again now that the
Awesome.
season's about to get underway.
Oh,
And then
that's so much fun.
and then the third one that I'm just about to start, I've gone back and forth with, is actually a dating podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
As I get older and I am like single, as a single guy,
Mhm.
the dating stories that people have are so hysterical and so funny and such train wrecks. Initially, it started off where the premise was that my dating life was a train wreck, and actually, my dating life is great. It's
Mhm.
usually everybody else's that's a train wreck. So that's what we do. We bring on, I bring on different men and women. They get to tell their sob stories or their hysterical stories of how this date went, or their worst dates, or their worst nightmares coming true on a date and things like that. So
That's
awesome.
funny. That sounds like that sounds like a good time. Just to hear those different things. Like, I've had my experiences too. So like, I share some stuff with you.
Yeah.
exactly, everybody's got a story to tell. And
Yeah.
like even the married ones are like, just
Yeah.
talking about marriage is, it's whether you're dating or you're married, you're still in the same boat.
Yeah.
We're all dealing with the same things. It's just you're dealing
Relationships.
when you're married, you're dealing with one person. And
Yeah.
those things are hard. I sometimes envy somebody who can deal with just one. When you
Mhm.
have somebody like myself who, I mean, I have one, or sometimes I have three, or sometimes I have none, and it's
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
challenge. It's a challenge
Hmm.
in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any
That's all.
questions you want to drop in?
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome to hear how much you're out there doing. I think it for people who don't know you, obviously our listener base is mostly veterans, and it's a little more on the business side.
Hmm.
But if you aren't familiar with your accounts, it really is such just a refreshing jolt of positivity to what is like such an increasingly toxic online community
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So it's really good. And I love, like you said, the NFC East podcast to hear that. It's spreading to other franchises to hey, we can be fans and we can hate Dallas, but we can also like put that aside and like talk like human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
One
doesn't
hundred
have to
percent.
all be negative. So
Exactly.
Well, every Dallas Cowboys game, I sit next to my counterpart,
yeah,
and
Yeah.
even Chris Collinsworth said it. He's like, if these two guys can befriend, there should be some peace in the world,
yeah,
So, and
yeah,
it's funny because I mean we are close friends because we
Mhm.
share the same passions just for different
exactly,
teams.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
The Jerry Jones loves trolling me.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And I take that as a sign of respect when I
yeah,
got
Yeah.
a billionaire and I get to live a little bit in his head where he
yeah,
likes to bust my chops. I love that. That's
yeah,
amazing to me. Like that I got that, I have that type of sway. And the
Wow.
fact that people see me when ESPN uses my picture to
Mhm.
say that the Philadelphia Eagles fan base is the most annoying fan base in the NFL, I took that as a compliment.
yep,
Yeah.
Like I'm like, yes, that's
yeah.
perfect. Yes, we're doing our job right then. It's the right thing to do.
I couldn't agree. That actually leads me to my
Yeah.
like last question. Just is there a moment or a like as the Philly sports guy that's really stood out to you as like, man, I just hit a home run. Like I just ruined that guy's day on the field, or like you alluded to like a Jerry Jones moment where you're like, I'm living rent free in this person's head. Like
I So I mean that type of moment. I mean those moments come in different packages. So
yeah,
Yeah.
that type of moment, that the first time that I got to realize that Jerry Jones was trolling me, it
yeah,
was during COVID. I happened to be standing next to the Dallas Cowboys super fan who's, like I said, he's doing the exact same thing that I'm doing. It's like I bought the tickets. We're in Dallas, and I bought the tickets to the game, and he is. Uh, Here comes these two guys in suits, masks on and everything, and they come and they hand a game day book signed by Jerry Jones to the Dallas Cowboys fan, and they say compliments of Mr. Jones, and they stand there and they're looking at me, and they're standing there for like 10 seconds or so. I'm like, so where's mine? They're just like, and then walk away. You know, like, was that just a troll? Was that just a troll?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even realize that I was getting trolled at the time. And it's
Yeah.
like, here it is. And I can imagine Jerry Jones is up there laughing hysterically because I'm like, where's mine at? You know what I mean? I'm the one that bought these tickets, not him. So it was like that was like one of those funny moments. And then to realize that anytime Jerry Jones talks about Eagles fans, he puts a picture of he's got this goofy picture of me where I must have been talking or whatever, and I kind of look like, it's just this funny look on my face because I think he caught me mid-sentence, and he uses that picture every time he's talking about the Eagles. So I'm just like, all right, this is great, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's such an amazing thing that, like I said, I take that as a badge of honor when I am in an owner's head that he likes using my picture. I feel that that's great. But as I said, the packages are different. The other time, one of the defining moments for me is I do a couple of different things for going into high schools. I have a couple of different packages where I do public speaking, and I'll talk about either living your passion, which is something that I'm doing right now currently, or I talk about bullying. And when I can go in and talk to a school of high school students, and during my talk, the whole room is quiet, it's such an amazing feeling because you can't ever get a high school to shut up, and all of the student body to be quiet at any moment in time.
Right.
And it was such a profound experience to, like, I didn't know it while it's going on, obviously, but when I watched and played back the video, and you have a whole high school sitting there listening to every word that you're saying, it really was a come to Jesus moment almost, where it's like, wow, I am impactful. And it is something that is being absorbed by them. So much so that the teachers are like, oh my God. They're like, we've never been able to get just our class quiet, let alone the entire school quiet at one time. And it's those types of moments that it's not about me. It's about how everybody else feels about me. I am just, I am the water that leads, that we're leading the horses to drink. You know what I mean? I look at it that way, that I'm not leading the horses. I am the water. And they can drink from it and maybe take with them a portion of what it is that I'm doing.
Wow.
It's awesome.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. How much speaking do you do?
I'd love to do a lot more. I do some.
Yeah.
Obviously, like it's one of those talents that I just happen to have. So I've done a couple of schools. Obviously, every time you watch a video of mine, it's all done in one take. I do not sit there and do 4 and 5 takes or even 2 takes. It's just I do it, I put it out there, and it's authentic. It's something that happens in the moment. I say what I got to say, and then I move on to the next. I post it and I do. And I think that's why people take to me so well, because I'm authentic. And it's not just Philly people. Like when I'm stuck in Houston and we just lose the World Series and they're partying out in the streets, and everybody loves to take out their phone and put it in my face because they feel like that, hey, this is the Philly guy, he's going to be angry. And when I'm sitting there and I'm congratulating everybody and telling them to be safe, they're like, thank you. Thank you. I don't even know what to say here, because I was expecting so much different. That when I give the congratulations and I don't make the excuses, and I'm like, hey, we lost the Super Bowl because that ref made a bad call. No, we lost that Super Bowl because Patrick Mahomes was a god in the second half, and was able to do those things. And we didn't have all the answers. That's why we lost. It had nothing to do with the one call that somebody made, and when you congratulate and you're not butthurt that you lost, those are the videos that go the most viral for me, because people love, one of my biggest lines that, the kids always love hearing me say is that, so the season is over. Like, cause I was the one video that went mega viral was I was yelling, I'm like at halftime, hey, we're down by 17, but I didn't hear no bell. This game ain't over yet. And then the next video I do starts off, so the season is over. And when you put them together, it sounds like, hey, everything, like, hey, we're still in this, we can still do this. And, now we lost. And I'm giving congratulations to the other team. It's a funny moment because it's like when you see it both, me going nuts and then me going like, all right, it's done. We're done. Congratulations to the other team.
Yeah.
That goes viral because Philly fans aren't typically like that.
Yeah.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah. So that by showing that side of any Philadelphia fan, like I said, I don't claim to represent the Philadelphia fan base.
Right.
But for a lot of people, I do represent them. And for the other fan bases, they do look towards me to say, you know what? I may hate Philadelphia. I hate everything about Philadelphia sports. I hate everything about the Philadelphia fan. But I follow you and appreciate everything that you're doing because you are real and you are what fandom and what sportsmanship should be about. And I can appreciate my kid following you. In fact, not only is my kid going to follow you now, but I'm going to follow you because I appreciate what you stand for in a city that's known for throwing snowballs at Santa.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely accurate.
It goes on both sides, and those are the moments. When I look in for the definition of what the Philly sports guy is, I make jokes and say, well, I'm the caricature, the living caricature of what a Philadelphia sports fan is. But I also want to demonstrate that Philadelphia sports fans aren't anywhere near as bad as people think they are. It's those few that do ruin it, but it's every fan base has got those few, and it's time for people to start to change, and I can only start that change by doing it myself.
That's a beautiful thing. We talk about leadership here on this podcast all the time, and that's amazing that you're showing that you're leading by example, and being that person to represent Philly sports wherever you go, even in Brazil, and everywhere else that you have been. Leading by example, and proving that Philadelphia sports isn't so scary, isn't so dangerous. We're not just throwing dog biscuits at people all the time. We're just as happy and as engaged as everyone else is, and giving a little bit of that spirit to other people. And I think that's why people are following you. That's why people want look up to you as a role model. And from kids to adults, which is a beautiful thing. And thank you for sharing that story about the one gentleman that passed away, because that's a very strong emotional connection that you're making with that audience out there.
Correct. Yeah, and that's been enlightening. Like I said, the universe needed to give me that at that moment in time. So to be able to keep on going. And now, like I said, where you asked me how much speaking I do, I mean, I have gone to banks and talked to them about and whether this one succeeds or fails is not an indictment on whether I'm a success or a failure. I feel that When we're all going in the same direction, we can move the mountain. When people are coming in the opposite way and you're fighting each other, that's typically what a boss does. That's when people have the negative thoughts about work. But when you're a leader, you're able to push forward and get everybody moving in the same direction. And like I said, it doesn't matter what task you're taking on, it becomes very small in the grand scheme of things when everybody's working in the same way.
What an awesome soundbite. That's fantastic. Wow. Thank you for that. Especially our audience listens to us because we talk about leadership oftentimes. We're also talking about veteran businesses in general and stuff like that. So thank you very much for that. That was a great soundbite for us to use there. Do you have anything? Oh, actually, let's let the audience know how they can find you.
So if you Google the Philly Sports Guy, you'll find me. If you Google face paint guy in Philly, that'll show up.
That'll come up too.
I am every social media platform that's out there. I have it, like Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. The Philly Sports Guy is where I'm at, and you'll see all my content.
Nice. Thank you so much. Yeah. You got anything else?
Yeah, no, we're just really looking forward to seeing you at VetFest. We're excited for it, September 14th. And again, for the audience, whether you're watching, listening, the Philly Sports Guy, it's a great follow. It's everything sports fandom should be. I highly recommend it, Jamie. Thank you so much. It's honestly been an honor to get to talk to you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. And to all the veterans out there listening to your show, thank you so much for your service. I know that when people thank you, it's always something odd. We never know how to respond because when people thank me and it's like, well, you're welcome. I did it just for you. Truth of the matter is that we do it for ourselves. So when somebody does thank you, just realize that it's really you thanking yourself. That's what they're doing. So just realize that we do appreciate it, everything that you do, for us to be able to live the way that we do now.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, for the fans out there, look forward to coming to VetFest on September 14th.
Definitely come out September 14th up here in Malvern, Greencastle headquarters. It's going to be a great day.
Awesome. Thank you again, Jamie, for being on the show. And we look forward to seeing you at VetFest.
Awesome. I can't wait. Thank you again, guys.
Yeah, you too.
Jamie.